All right, we'll be getting started in about another couple minutes or so.
Sounds good.
Getting started in about another couple minutes or so.
Sounds good.
All right, Rachel, ready to get started? Sorry, you're on mute.
Sorry, I was muted. Perfect test. Let's do it.
Excellent. All right, I'll start the recording.
This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sam Nasser, and this is the Cleveland C# User Group. A little bit about the group. We meet every month, typically every fourth week of the month. The meetings are free of charge and open to the public, and we cover a variety of topics related to .NET. You can find all the meeting information posted at meetup.com at the link listed at the bottom of the slide. As always, we'd like to thank our sponsors, the .NET Foundation for sponsoring the Meetup website, and NIS Technologies for sponsoring the virtual meeting space. Some general information. First and foremost, please keep in mind participation is encouraged. Even though it's a virtual setting, we always like to encourage questions and comments. And like I always say, the only stupid question is the one not being asked. So always jump in with a question that you may have in mind. However, when not speaking, kindly ask you to mute your microphones just to avoid any background noise. And we want to keep it casual but organized. So you don't necessarily have to wait for the speaker to stop at specific intervals to ask questions, but feel free to jump in either verbally or in chat. However, we want to give our speaker enough time to go through the slides and the demos. Also, the presentation is being recorded and will be posted on YouTube in just a few short days. So for tonight's feature presentation, we have hybrid web and desktop apps with .NET MAUI and Blazor, and that's going to be presented by Rachel Kang. Rachel is the product manager at Microsoft. She joins us from the Washington, D.C. area, and she is the member of the She is a member of the .NET MAUI team and has been for the last few years. And she also has a bachelor's in computer science from Harvard University. And so with that, Rachel, welcome. Glad to have you join us tonight.
Hello. Thank you for that really kind intro. All right.
Sure thing.
So I'm going to share my screen. That look good?
Looks great.
Amazing. So let's get started then. We're going to talk today about all things hybrid web and native apps with .NET MAUI and Blazor. And I say native rather than just desktop because it's native desktop and mobile. Alrighty then. So you already kindly introduced me, but I'm going to reintroduce myself again. As was mentioned, I'm Rachel. I'm a PM at Microsoft. I started off on the team as a software engineer for the first 3 years or so, and now I'm a PM. And in total, I've been on the team for nearly 5 years now. And it's been a blast. So I've been enjoying working on .NET MAUI, Visual Studio, and VS Code tools. And I'm also really passionate about accessibility and, of course, AI with all of the latest innovations. I was born and raised in New York, lived in Boston for another 8 years or so and did college there. Now I'm in DC. And this picture here is from the recent cherry blossom season. We had peak bloom here in DC just a couple weeks ago. So super, super beautiful. It's been nice. And lately, I've been doing a lot of eating and sleeping and being a tourist since I just moved to DC. And there's a lot of monuments, and all the museums are free here. If you didn't know that, all the Smithsonian's are free. So that's a fun fact if you're planning on visiting. Um, and learning more about the universe. I've been really interested lately in like learning more about the beginning of the universe and cosmology and all of that. So that's just a little bit about me. Figured I'd introduce myself in a little more depth since we'll be spending an hour and a half together. All right, so what will I be talking about for an hour and a half? I'll start off with a bit of an overview of Microsoft's investments in client development technologies. Then I'll talk about a little bit about Maui, a little bit about Blazor, and then of course Blazor Hybrid, and we'll have a couple demos sprinkled in. And I will try to plan for a 10-minute break or so in the middle so y'all can go stretch. And without further ado, start off with Microsoft's investments in client development. So, Microsoft invests in a wide variety of client development application frameworks and technologies for our developers. We have everything from Windows native with WinUI 3, which is the modern Windows desktop development stack, providing the deepest native experiences on Windows. It's the future of Windows desktop development and recommended for all new Windows apps. And then there's also WinForms and WPF there, delivering secure, scalable, sophisticated desktop experiences that have been refined, of course, through years and years of enterprise use. And then on the cross-platform native side of things, we have .NET MAUI, cross-platform development stack for building modern native Windows apps, Mac Catalyst, iOS, and Android apps, all within a single code base. And there's also React Native, also a cross-platform framework that combines the best parts of native development with React and JavaScript. There's Blazor Web on the web side of things. And there's also Blazor Hybrid. And we're going to go more in depth into all of these. All right, so what are the benefits of these types of client apps? I just kind of ran down through it, but just to reiterate real quick, the Windows native side, if you're looking to build Windows apps and have the deepest native experience on Windows, that's what you're interested in. If you're interested in building apps for maximum reach across any web browser, then you're going to want to build a web app. And of course, what I'm here to talk mostly about today is .NET MAUI, which lives in the cross-platform native side of things, and hybrid, where you can have the best of both worlds. Mix and match. So the cool thing about all that is that with .NET, you can have as much reach or as much depth as you want, right? So I mentioned Blazor on the web side of things, .NET MAUI in terms of the native side of things and really getting to the native desktop and mobile app experiences. And it really is a sliding scale. So that's the cool thing about Blazor Hybrid with Blazor and .NET MAUI, and that it allows you to really choose the right mix for you depending on your application's needs. You can go fully web, fully native, have the best of both with hybrid. And so that's the gist of what I'm going to be talking about today. Alrighty. .NET MAUI. So as I mentioned, .NET MAUI is our cross-platform development framework for desktop and mobile. It allows you to have a single project system, single code base, all with .NET and C#, which we all know and love. And from that single code base, you can write, build, and deploy apps on all of these platforms here on WinUI, Mac Catalyst, iOS, and Android, or any combination of any of these. So super efficient, super productive way of developing apps across all platforms. to go a little bit more in depth into how that works and what that really looks like here. This is a diagram of the .NET MAUI architecture. So the .NET MAUI layer, we have this device abstraction layer, which the .NET MAUI controls and APIs are, and they are also inclusive of .NET for Android, .NET for iOS, and .NET for Mac Catalyst. And through bindings, they kind of talk to the technical stacks for each of the native platforms. So the .NET for Android team, for example, at Microsoft, they are working to And then all of that sits on top of the .NET runtime and libraries, so you have access to the rich .NET ecosystem and the base class libraries there. And your app code sits on all of this and gets to have access to this modern native client stack for .NET and everything that is offered here. And then in the latest version of .NET, so .NET 9, we've continued to see more and more improvements to the .NET MAUI framework as well. So as of the latest, we have the latest Android API 35 and iOS 18 API supported. There's a new Xcode sync tool for folks who are working in Xcode and looking to sync that with their MAUI projects. We have a new native library interop framework for helping folks to create bindings that you might be interested in that to extend capabilities beyond what is offered already inside of the box with MAUI. There's new controls and just new performance improvements and so much more. So if you're familiar with MAUI, but you're not yet on .NET 9, definitely check it out and be sure that you get on .NET 9. And if you want to be even on the latest and greatest of things, there's also the .NET 10 previews, which you can check out as well. And the great thing about using MAUI is also the awesome tooling that you can leverage to build your MAUI apps. So in VS Code land, we have a extension for .NET MAUI that you can leverage. And over the past year, there's been tons of improvements to it in terms of your experience with XAML editing, leveraging the IntelliSense and tooltips and more. There's been improvements to the hot reload experience. And as I mentioned before, with the Xcode sync support, there's a new .NET tool that can be used in VS Code as well. So lots of greatness in VS Code land. That's been one of my favorite places to work lately. And then, of course, Visual Studio as well. So the latest versions of Visual Studio stable are 17.12 and 17.13, and there's been a lot of awesome developments there in the past year as well. There's a new .NET MAUI sample template. There's been improvements to hot reload, just as in VS Code, improvements to GitHub Copilot, and so much more. These are just a couple highlights. There's been a lot happening. And then again, if you want to be on the latest and greatest with the previews, you can check out the 17.14 previews and see what we've been cooking up. For example, live preview at design time, which I will give a spin and show you all right now. Alrighty. So I just switched over to my dev box. So I'm on a MacBook, but this is a Windows virtual environment. And I'm going to pop open Visual Studio. And my Visual Studio is pink because why not? And I'm going to create a new .NET MAUI app. So I can search for all the templates here, and you can see we have a ton of options here. And just for now, since we're talking about just MAUI, I'm going to just click on the .NET MAUI app and do that. Let's say Cleveland, user group. All right. Next. So the new feature I mentioned in 1712, as of 1712 onward, is here. There's this include sample content checkbox, and same in VS Code, you can access this version of the template. And if I hit create, rather than just a blank app with minimal controls, I actually get a full-fledged sample. So we're going to get a to-do app that is much more realistic of the apps, much like the apps that you would build, and shows you how to use shell and implement navigation and whatnot. And if I take a look here at the Maui program.cs file, we can actually see that we're using also the Maui Community Toolkit and the Syncfusion Toolkit for .NET Maui, which is free and offers a lot more beautiful controls. So let's take a look at that and what it looks like. So I'm going to run here on Windows so we can take a look at what this looks like. And you can see all the beautiful stuff that we have access to from all of these toolkits. All right, so you can see here the Windows app has launched. This is just the sample template that you get from creating a file new Maui project with the sample content included. And we see here we have this chart, which is from Syncfusion, and a lot of other beautiful things. But while I'm here, I also want to show you the other great things about using Visual Studio with .NET Maui. So let me stop this, and I'm going to actually pop open a XAML file. And I'm in 1714, the latest preview version here. And when you pop open a XAML file now, you can access live preview at design time when it's detached from the debugger. So you can see here I stopped running my Windows app, but when I pop open my XAML file, oops, I have a button here for live preview. And if I click on it, I can see my app running here, and I can click into the different controls of my Maui app. So for example, if I click here, it'll take me in my XAML file to the Syncfusion circular chart. So I can take a look directly at what that looks like. I can click into this projects label and I can make edits as well. So not only is the live preview functioning at design time when we're not actively debugging, but so is hot reload and all of the other great capabilities here. So if I want to change projects here to Cleveland projects or something, then I can see that being updated at design time right in my live preview. And that's just one of those many super awesome improvements that you can access in the latest preview. So definitely check it out if you haven't already. Let us know how that works for you. And then, of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about Copilot. So I'm going to do that. So let's say I want to create a completely new UI. I am going to delete everything in this file. Bloop. All right, and you can see that in the live preview shows everything's gone. I'm gonna pop open so in the upper right hand corner here, you can see there's a GitHub Copilot button. And there's a free version now, so anyone can use GitHub Copilot as long as you have a GitHub account. So I'm gonna click on it and I can open a chat window or a new edits thread. So I'm gonna go with the edits thread for now. And then you can see it's opened a chat, Copilot chat with me, and the edits thread will allow me to enable Copilot to make the edits directly in my editor. And at the bottom, I can even select the models that I want to use. So I'm just going to use Claude 3.5. And I'm going to ask Copilot, you know, in this YAML file, implement actually, I'm not even going to say in this YAML file because I think I want edits across my files. So let's see how this works. I'm going to say implement a blue button with white text that reads, "Hello, Cleveland." No, I want it to read, "Say hello." And when clicked, prints, "Hello, Cleveland." All right. So I'm going to ask Copilot to do that. Let's see what it does for us. Copilot edits, generating a response. Has anyone here used GitHub Copilot yet? If so, I'd love to hear about y'all's experiences in the chat.
I have, and I loved it.
I know, it's awesome, right?
Beyond awesome.
Yeah.
It's almost a mood leader.
Yeah. Both
Yeah, I turned it off because I was going through a book on ASP.NET Core,
Mhm.
and I I started GitHub Copilot, the paid subscription, in the middle of it, and I tried typing out the example, and it did the whole example for me, and yeah, I gotta turn this off because
It was too good.
yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. We love to hear that. Okay, so we can see here Copilot is previewing for me the edits that it can make for me. It's popped in a grid with a button with the text and colors that I asked of it. So that looks good to me. I'm going to press tab to accept that. And then let's take a look at the code behind here. It's created a command to display a snack bar. Oh, interesting. I don't actually want to do that. So I'm going to delete that part. Let me ask Copilot to just print a label. So when the button is clicked, show a label on the page that says, "Hello, Cleveland." But we can see here already in the live preview, it's immediately reflecting my changes, which is awesome. So we can see the blue button with the white text that says "Say hello." And now Copilot will hopefully get the button to create that message in the way I wanted it to. Although they didn't do the wrong thing at first, to be fair. Snack bar is totally valid, just not what I was going for. Alrighty. Whoa, it's doing a lot of things. Okay, I'm just gonna trust for now and say accept all. Maybe that wasn't the right move. There's a lot of things happening here, actually. Okay. All right, I'm gonna delete this and then I'll try one more time before we move on. This is why it's a live demo, right? Something needs to go wrong. Okay. Let me click the reset changes here. So that's another great thing about edits mode is if Copilot does something you didn't expect it to, I can just say, never mind, undo all my changes for me, and it'll go back to what it was before. Although I guess I already had made changes twice here. Okay. Let's say undo that implementation and make the button, when clicked, display a label that reads Hello Cleveland. All right, so it's thinking again. And I shall accept all again. Oh, it's trying to be real fancy. Okay, I'm going to move on for now. But we can see that it's trying, and it has the Hello Cleveland greeting text here correct this time. And the awesome thing about Copilot is that you're still in the driver's seat, so we can iterate on it together. Alrighty. All right. So as I showed you, you can access that cool sample template right from the beginning, just straight built into Visual Studio and VS Code. And you also get access to the cool design time tools. So you can leverage live preview and hot reload without needing to run your app. And so it just allows for a much faster development loop. And GitHub Copilot, when it works, is amazing. And it just keeps getting better and better every day. So definitely check it out. Alrighty. So that's a little bit about Maui. Let's talk a little bit about Blazor. So, what is Blazor? Blazor is our full stack web framework that allows developers to build interactive web apps using C# and Razor syntax. So you can write your client-side logic in C# and you don't need to worry about JavaScript at all. Of course, unless you want to. If you want to leverage JavaScript, then there are ways that you can still bring that into your app as well. So you can have as much or as little of JavaScript as you want with Blazor, where C# reigns. And of course, also with Blazor, you can leverage the tooling and IDEs you know and love with VS Code and Visual Studio. And again, access all of the awesome .NET ecosystem features. How does Blazor work? So with Blazor, there's multiple different hosting models. There's Blazor Server, through which you can run the app on the server with the UI updates being sent over a SignalR connection. And this is beneficial for apps that require real-time updates and have a constant connection to the server. And on the other side, there's Blazor WebAssembly or WASM, which runs the app directly in their browser using WASM, downloading the .NET runtime and the app code to the client. And this is beneficial for apps that need to work offline or have less dependency on server-side processing. So pros and cons to using server-side or client-side approaches here with Blazor Server or Blazor WASM in terms of the needs of your application and the speed that is required and the type of execution that you want here. But beyond Blazor Server and Blazor WASM, there's of course Blazor Hybrid. So on top of having the option of server and WASM, there's hybrid, which I know I've been talking about Maui and Maui Blazor Hybrid, but there's also the option to use Blazor Hybrid with WinForms and WPF. So all the different hybrids. And with Blazor Hybrid, with .NET MAUI, it embeds the Blazor component into native apps like .NET MAUI. So, and unlike the other Blazor modes here, with the hybrid apps, you don't need to use WASM and you don't require a server for hosting because it runs the .NET logic directly on the device using the .NET runtime, while the UI is rendered via the platform's web view. So in the case of MAUI, that is the Blazor web view. So let's talk a little bit more about Blazor Hybrid. Why build them? In case you aren't sold yet, there's plenty of benefits here for why you would want to build Blazor Hybrid apps. One, I've been saying over and over, it's the best of both worlds. You get a blend of native and web technology, with the UI being written using web technologies such as HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, but it's all wrapped in a native app container, so you can have it alongside your native controls. You get access to the native platform features and the device hardware that way as well. Whereas a web app normally wouldn't be able to access any of that easily, if at all. And the cool thing about having access to the native platform is that it can run not only on web, but it can run on mobile and desktop devices. It can run on all of those target platforms of .NET MAUI that I mentioned. And that also affects the reach that your apps can have in the app stores, because you can distribute your apps in the Apple Store or the Google Play Store on top of just the Windows Store. You can be in all the stores. And of course, the code reuse and the efficiency there is just unmatched, because you can reuse your code across all of the device platforms and web browsers. So what does this look like from an architectural standpoint? We saw a similar diagram earlier here for what .NET MAUI looks like. And when it comes to Blazor Hybrid, we basically have our .NET Razor components in Blazorland being connected to .NET MAUI through what we call a Blazor web view, which is a .NET MAUI control. And so again, we get the best of both worlds here. I think my slides are frozen. Okay, I think it moved. All right, so this also affects the look and feel, UX, code reuse, and skill set, of course. So with having Blazor Hybrid and the best of both worlds, that also means we have aspects of both web UI and native UI. So from the web UI side of things, it typically looks the same across devices, while native UI actually provides device-specific aesthetic look and feel. So for example, you might be familiar with what a switch control looks like on Android and what that switch control looks like on an iPhone or on Windows. They tend to look pretty different depending on the aesthetic of that platform, even though they are all the same switch. So that's something that native UIs can account for to provide more seamless user experiences that are tailored to those specific devices and the users who are acquainted with what the aesthetic of experiences tend to look like on that device. And then in terms of code reuse, the advantage with web UI is that it can be easily reused in a web app, which can run anywhere. And of course, in terms of skill set here, there's also a difference. So web UI requires knowledge of HTML, JavaScript, CSS, typically, where with native UI on the Microsoft stack, we need to have knowledge of XAML and C# for everything, of course. So here is an example of a Blazor Hybrid and web success story of the many that there are. My Ride K through 12, with the help of Tyler Technologies, they built this application that's being used in over 2,500 schools, and 37% of the nation's students are being routed by this application. And they have over 750,000 downloads. So you can see how just the reach of how successful that folks can be and are and have been with Blazor Hybrid and Web in .NET MAUI. And there's a quote here from the software architect at Tyler Technologies talking about how from day one, they were able to support web browsers, tablets, phones, all of the platforms because they were using Blazor Hybrid. And so that's just part of the awesomeness that you get out of using it. And if you want to read more about their story and their journey with using .NET MAUI Blazor Hybrid, you can check it out on the .NET Customer Showcase website, linked at the bottom of the slide. So one of the biggest benefits of hybrid apps, of course, is being able to reuse your UI across your native and web apps. If you also want to target web browsers, you can structure your solution to maximize code reuse using a shared Razor class library that houses the shared UI, as well as interfaces for any functionality you want to implement and use from the UI. And then the implementations of these are defined in the specific Blazor web and MAUI projects. And this is because sometimes you need to write different code for the different hosting models, and this gives you a clean way to do that. So we're working on adding even more value to .NET MAUI in hybrid apps, and in the latest version of .NET in .NET 9, hybrid apps are better than ever, and they just continue to get better and better. So I just mentioned Blazor Hybrid and Web. There's a solution template for that you can leverage as of .NET 9. That's also accessible straight out of Visual Studio and VS Code. There's been a lot of inner loop developments with hot reload and more with the Blazor Hybrid experience, in addition to .NET MAUI. And lots of documentation and bug fixes. And another cool thing about Blazor Hybrid with .NET MAUI in .NET 9 onwards is that you can use your hybrid apps and build them with JavaScript front ends as well. So if you have an Angular app or React app and you have these other JavaScript investments in web already, there are ways that you can reuse that in a .NET MAUI Blazor hybrid solution as well through a new control called Hybrid Web View, not to be mistaken with Blazor Web View. So there's a lot of potential for customization here. Alrighty, so I mentioned that one of the awesome new developments is this new solution template that is available for Blazor Hybrid and Web. It allows you to reuse your UI across MAUI native and Blazor web apps more easily, and use interface injection to support the different hosting models, and multi-targeting to create UI for all of the different platforms: Windows, Mac, iOS, Android, all of the goodies. And this is something that you can do before .NET 9 as well, but just a lot more easily with .NET 9 now that this solution template is available. All right. So without further ado, I'm going to show this demo, but it's also kind of a workshop. So if folks want to follow along, I welcome you to do so. I can share a link in the chat. This is actually hot off the press. Beth on my team built this lab, and y'all are getting a super early preview of what this experience looks like. So If you end up following along, let us know how it works for you so we can make any tweaks as needed. But I've already checked it out and it's awesome. Any questions so far before we jump into this longer demo workshop? Alrighty, I'll continue onward then. Okay, I'm gonna close this out. Don't need to be reminded of my failed demo. And I'm gonna open a new one. So actually, I should pop open the lab so we can all look at it together. I'm going to share it here so we can all peek at it together. So this is the lab that I'll be walking through. And I'm going to start here with number 1. So number 1, we're going to understand the structure and purpose of a Blazor hybrid and web template. And I encourage y'all to read through this in your free time or while I'm talking, whatever works best for you. But I will be speaking to it as well as we go along. Okay, so we're going to get started with that Blazor hybrid and web template, solution template that I mentioned. So I'm going to open Visual Studio, which I have. I'm going to create a new project. I'm going to search for Maui again. And as you saw before when I was creating the Maui app, we have the Maui app project template, but we also have the Maui Blazor hybrid app template. And among others, we have this Maui Blazor hybrid and web app template. So that's what we're going to be focusing on for this demo. So I'm gonna create that, and then the lab tells me to call it my hybrid app. So I'm just gonna do that for convenience. Hit next. We want it to be on .NET 9. Yes. We want it configured for HTTPS. Yes. We'll choose the server render mode, and you can see here we can choose WASM if we wanted to. And then we will include the sample pages that they give us. Cool. I'm going to hit create, and we're going to see that the solution is going to have a standard Maui Blazor hybrid app project. So that was one of the other templates that I pointed out just a moment ago. So that's this top one here, this my hybrid app project. This up top is the Maui Blazor hybrid app project. And then below that, we have the my hybrid app .shared project. This is where the shared Razor components and services are. And then last but not least, at the bottom, we have this third project, my hybrid app.web, and that is our Blazor web app project. So these are the 3 that we have, and we are going to build just to make sure everything builds beautifully. So I'm going to hit build, and it's going to tell us that everything is a success. I am manifesting. Do-do-do-do. All right, while we are waiting for that to launch, let's start taking a look at what the solution looks like. So let's take a look at the project structure here for this template. So here in my hybrid app, we have something called www.root. This is where the static web assets are located, like our app.cs and our index.html file. And that's going to be the root of the Blazor web view. We have a platforms folder, which shows all the different platforms. So this is where any platform specific code that we might need to configure will go. We have our resources folder, which is for all the Maui static assets. So splash screens, images, any raw resources like that, those get plopped in there into resources. And then we have the CS proj, which we can take a quick look at. Here, edit project file. And we can see in the target frameworks that we are targeting Android, iOS, Mac, and Windows. So again, all of those Maui target frameworks. Yay, our build succeeded. It succeeded a while ago. I was just distracted. All right. So the lab also shows us how we can configure a special type of launch profile. So why don't we go ahead and do that? So rather than just hitting build here or running just on my Windows machine, I can actually configure a special type of profile. So I am going to do that. If I hit the drop down here, there's a option to configure startup projects. And I'm going to click multiple startup projects. And then in here, I'm going to configure so that when I build the app on this using this profile, it'll actually launch on both the Windows app and on web. So here I'll change this to start, this to start. Let me make sure I'm doing everything correctly. Okay, this one is start without debugging. This one, I want it to start on my Windows machine. And then for the web, I wanted to use HTTPS. And then I'll name this profile Windows plus web. So I know that that's what's happening and that's what we're doing. Okay, great. So now I have this Windows plus web configuration here that I can use. Awesome. All right, let's continue taking a look at our solution and what it looks like here. So let's take a look at the main page.xaml. So in the main page.xaml here, we have the Blazor web view that I mentioned. So this is a .NET MAUI XAML file. So we have a content page, and technically you can have whatever MAUI controls you want in here. But amongst that, we have just in the template, the Blazor web view. And this Blazor web view is our root view. So you can see it references that www.root index.html file that I had pointed out earlier. And then when we go to pop open the Maui program.cs file here, we can see that this is where we configure the builder that creates the Maui app. We have all of the app services being created here. And there might be certain implementations that are needed depending on where it's running. In this case, we have here, for example, the form factor example that we will be taking another look at a bit later. Actually, in here in the services folder, we can see formfactor.cs. This is where that is implemented on the Maui side. All right, so that's a little tour of the first project here, the .NET MAUI Blazor hybrid project. Let's move on now to do a little tour of what it looks like in the shared Razor class library project. So we have here pages and layout that are being shared. And this is stuff that's shared between the Maui and Blazor web apps. So again, if I take a look at the services here, I have an interface for that form factor we saw. And that's the interface for what we saw was being implemented on the Maui side of the house. And if we take a look at the home.razor file, we can see at the top that the shared services and the form factor is being injected here. The interface is being injected so that the implementations can be used. All right, moving on now to the web app project. So the web app project here, we can see again in the services, we have now the implementation of the form factor on the web side. So we saw the implementation on the Maui side, we saw the interface was shared, and now we see the implementation on the web side of the house. And we also have a program.cs file on the website here. And you can see it looks similar to the Maui program.cs file that we had in the Maui app, in that it configures the builder, not for the Maui app this time, but the web app. And it's also injecting the server implementation for form factor right here. Cool. So that is a little bit of a tour of what the File New app looks like. That's part one of the lab. And before we move on to the next part, let's take a little break. Let's take 5. So we'll come back at 6:58 Eastern. Are you in Central Time? Is it 5:58?
Oh, 6:58 is right. We're Eastern Standard.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, 6:58 it is then.
I'm just going to put up a slide to let everyone know the presentation will resume shortly. And we'll pick up in 5 minutes.
Sounds great. See y'all in 5.
Right on the money, Rachel.
Yep. Hope everyone got to stretch their legs a bit.
And a drink refill.
Of course, gotta stay hydrated, or whatever you're drinking. Stay hydrated with that. All right, resharing my screen. We have Beth here from my team also tuned in, and she kindly reminded me that I didn't actually show the app running. So we're gonna do that. I'm gonna hit start here so we can see the different form factors in motion, and we can see it running on both Windows and web. Hi, Beth. You can ask her all the hard questions. Alrighty. Spinning, spinning, spinning. Alrighty, so here you can see, because we set up that special configuration, that we got it launched both on Windows and web at the same time. Awesome. And in the Windows app, it tells us that we're running on desktop here using WinUI. So that's coming from the Maui implementation of that form factor. And then on the website here, it's letting us know that we're running on web, and that's coming from the web implementation of the form factor. Alrighty. All right, so now that I proved it works, let's move on to part 2. Part 2 of the lab will be creating a service to fetch the monkeys to use in our app. We're building a monkey finder. So let's get into it. Alrighty, so first step, I'm going to go into the shared project, and I'm going to add a new folder. Add new folder. We'll call it models, and then we're going to add a model for monkey. So I'm going to add a class called monkey.cs, and then I'm going to copy paste some code all in the lab. Thank you, Beth, making our lives easier out here. So we have a model for the monkey, and we have name, location, details, image, population, and latitude and longitude. So just some info that we can access about our monkey. And then we're going to create a monkey service interface. So in the services folder, I'm going to create a iMonkey service. So I'm going to add a class here, iMonkey service.cs, and going to create this interface for our monkey. And then we have to implement the server implementation. Okay, so we are going to go into our web app project first. And then in the services, we're going to create the implementation for this monkey service implementation, just like we saw this form factor implementation of that form factor interface and under services. So we're going to do that. Going to add a class, and I'm going to call it monkey service. And I'm going to pop in the implementation for that. Boom. Alrighty. So here in this implementation, we can see that we have created some mock data. Normally you can create a real database where you'll have all your monkey info, but here, for the sake of the demo and lab, we've manually hard-coded all of our monkeys and their information, so we have access to that. And now we're going to make sure that we actually register to the service and expose the endpoint. So I'm going to go into that program.cs file, and similar to what we had seen with the form factor here, we're going to add, and look at that, Copilot's already thinking ahead for me. We're going to add the same thing for the monkey service. Whoop. All right. And then we're also going to expose the minimal web API so the remote clients can fetch the monkey data from the server. So we're going to do that right over here. Oop. All right, so this will help us to expose the endpoint to the Maui client and get that monkey data. All right, now that we've done that, let's create the client implementation. So we're going to go into the properties folder here and open the launch settings.json file. And here we're going to see that we have, for HTTPS here, we have this application URL. It'll look different for you, so don't copy me here exactly. Make sure you're following along and checking what this URL looks like on your machine. But I have here that for HTTPS, the local host is 7032. So I'm going to keep that value in mind. And when I go over now to my hybrid app project on the client side, I'm going to need that value. So first I'm going to create the implementation again for my monkey service and services. I'm going to go and create a new create a new class again. Monkey service. And then I'm going to paste the implementation of the monkey service. And here is where we need that the actual port that is relevant to you. So instead of whatever has been pasted there, I'm going to make sure I'm using the one that is actually relevant to my machine. My Visual Studio just froze. No. Uh-oh. Can y'all hear me all right? Do y'all still have me?
Yeah, you're still on, no problem.
Okay.
But while Visual Studio is recovering, Beth noted something interesting in chat. She said, and I quote, "If y'all are familiar with Blazor, you'll notice we're using scoped service for the monkey data service." Can you elaborate more on the scoped service for those that are not familiar with it?
Yeah, sure. Just you use scope services because scoped services is scoped to the HTTP requests themselves. And so if you're doing any sort of like data per user or per request, you're going to want to scope the service. For in the case of the form factor, that can be a singleton service because you only need one of those classes lifetime for the entire application because it's shared across requests. Does that make sense?
Thank you. And I assume you're from the South if you used y'all in a sentence?
Actually, I'm in California, so it's a lot earlier
Oh,
here for me than you.
close enough, I guess.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Beth.
if anybody has any ancillary questions while Rachel's going through this, she's doing great. I'm in the chat. I can answer any questions.
Thanks,
Excellent.
Beth.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right. So my dev box actually just crashed. I don't know why that happened, but luckily we're back. So it wasn't Visual Studio, in case you were wondering. Whoa. Okay. So what were we saying here? Got to make sure we use the right port. So 7032 for me. So I'm going to make sure, copy that over correctly. Alrighty. Okay. What is next? Now I'm going to go to the mauiprogram.cs file And I'm going to make sure to register the service. So similar to what we did in the program.cs file on the website, again, we're going to do the same thing here. And we're going to register the service again, but this time on the Maui program side for the Maui project. I think all the screen sharing is a bit much for my dev box right now. It's freezing up again. Oh no. Alrighty. I'm gonna have to reconnect to my dev box again. Thanks y'all for bearing with me. This like never happens.
But it always happens during a live demo.
I know. Believe me or not. My Mac is acting up. We had just reached the end of part 2 too, so we should be able to run it now and everything just should work beautifully. Oh, okay, it opened, but it opened on my other screen. Okay. Oh, it self-corrected the resolution. Great. Alrighty. So, okay. Let's hit start and see if we can see our monkeys. Well, actually, I don't think we can see our monkeys yet, but let's make sure that everything builds and there are no errors and I did everything right. And in the meantime, oh, there we are. Okay, it's working. We are back and it's building and everything is error-free, so we can move on. Okay, amazing. The lab moves on. We move forward. We're going to move forward now to part 3. And now this is where we're actually going to build the UI so we can see the monkeys that we've created. Alrighty, so let's do it. We're going to first create the monkeys page. So in the shared project, I'm going to add a new page to the pages folder. I actually just like copy pasting existing files. That's my preferred method of creating files, honestly. And then I'm going to call it monkeys.razor. And I'm going to replace the content here with my monkeys UI that I want. And you can see here in the Razor component, all the HTML stuff. So we have a div that shows that it's loading while it's loading. And then once the monkeys are loaded, we'll be able to see a list of cards for each monkey with their image and their name. And then in addition to the HTML that we have here, our code behind implementation right in the same file. So this is the awesomeness of Razor here. All right, so now I'm gonna pop open in the layout file here, the nav menu.razor file, and make sure that we have an actual route to that new monkeys page we created so that we can navigate to the monkeys page. So I'm going to add that here. So in addition to the links to nav to home, counter, and weather, now we also have one for monkeys. Alrighty, so now let's run the solution and we should be able to see our monkeys. All right, so yay, we can see here that since we added that navigation we see monkeys in the menu. And when I click, we got our monkeys. We got our baboon, we got our blue monkey, and then on the website as well, we can see the same exact list of monkeys. It's beautiful. But we want more. We saw before that we included a lot of info for the monkeys, not just the image and names. So we're going to go ahead and create another page, another Razor component for it, for the monkey details. So back in the shared project under the pages directory, we're going to create another file for details page. So I'm going to pop that in. We're going to call it details page.razor, and I'm going to replace the contents here. And now we see here, this time we have not only the image and name of the monkey, but we're also going to be showing the monkey's location, population, and any other details that we have about our monkey. And here, you'll notice that we're using the route of the page, which includes the name of the monkey. And so we're going to be using that parameter to identify the selected monkey. And that's what this code behind here is about. Alrighty. So now we're going to go back into the monkeys.razor file and add a clickable link to each of the monkey cards so that we can navigate to the monkey details page from the monkeys. So I'm going to add that to the monkey card here, right over here. So in the, did I add it to the right spot? Yes. Yeah. So here in the card, we're going to add this link so that the card, clicking on the card will take us to the details card view as well. And now I'm going to run again, and we should be able to see the beautiful details page. All right, let's go check out our monkeys. So now we have our monkeys, and I'm going to click on the squirrel monkey. And ta-da! We see here we have the details for the squirrel monkey, and similar situation on the web. If I click on the squirrel monkey, we got our details. We got the image name, but also the location, population, and details about the squirrel monkey. So you can learn all about your monkeys. Yay! All right, last but not least, let's move to the final part of this lab, part 4. So now we're going to detect internet access and display a dialog if it's offline by implementing this custom connectivity service and tapping into that. So let's go. Alrighty. Okay, so in the shared folder again, this should be easy now since we all know how this works, right? In the shared project, in services, that's where we go to add our interface. So I'm going to add here a new class for our connectivity service interface and implement that interface. We're just going to have a Boolean, whether it's connected or not. Keep it simple. And then in our hybrid app project, we're going to implement that interface. So in services, we'll create a new file for the connectivity service, pop in that implementation, and we're going to just return that it's connected if it is connected to the internet. And then, of course, same thing on the website. In services, we're going to add the connectivity service implementation here as well. Connectivity service. We're going to implement that. We're going to go and make sure the services are registered again. So on the client side for the Maui Hybrid app, we're going to do that again in the Maui program.cs file. And then we're going to create a shared Razor component. So when it's not connected, we're going to show a little alert. So we're going to create a component for that UI piece. So in the shared project under components, it doesn't exist yet. So we're going to create a new folder called components. So rather than a full page, if we just want a UI component that we can reuse, we can do that as well. And now we're going to add a Razor file here as well. So this is going to be, we're going to call it offline alert.razor. Pop in that implementation. So it's going to say there's no internet connection. Please check your connection and try again. We're going to make sure our monkeys.razor file is using this component. So if I find my monkeys page here, I'm going to inject the navigation manager and make sure we're using the shared models and the shared components, which we just created. And then we're gonna make sure the offline alert is accounted for so that it shows that when necessary. So we'll just put it here at the top. And then, of course, we need to implement the refresh handler command here. So I'm going to pop that right here so that it's all wired up. All right. Now that we've done that, I'm going to run the solution and we'll navigate to monkeys. And you can see if I navigate to monkeys, we see the monkeys here on both the Windows desktop app and let me reload here. Whoa, I actually wasn't expecting that. I must have forgotten to register the service on the website. So let me go and take a look at that. So I'm going to take a look here in the program.cs file. Yeah, I definitely forgot here. So I forgot here to register the connectivity service. So I'm going to pop that in, run it again. All right, so again, looks fine on Windows. We got our monkeys. And then on web, yeah, looks like the monkeys look good there as well. But we wanted to test when it's not working, right? So we can see that error. So if I were to disconnect my network, then we would see that. But I'm not going to do that because I don't want to crash my dev box or lose my connection from y'all. So for simplicity, what I'm just going to do for now is in that implementation for the connectivity service for web, instead of true, I'm just going to return false so y'all can see. But but y'all can disconnect on your own local machines and check it out some other time as you wish. So again, Windows, we're fine. We still see the monkeys. But on web, it says no internet connection. Please check your connection and try again, since we made sure that it would show up as not being connected. So there you go. That's the lab. Thanks for following along. I hope y'all were able to get here. And if not, you can go back to this lab here. It's all on GitHub, and you can follow along and make sure that you revisit everything and learn everything more in depth. Awesome. Alrighty. I'll pop back into presentation for final couple slides. So, TLDR, hybrid apps gives you the best of both worlds. They're great for web devs that want the native platform capabilities and that App Store distribution. And with hybrid apps, you can reuse your web UI across your web apps and your native apps with the component libraries and interfaces. And of course, using Maui for the multi-platform abstractions and multi-targeting. I didn't get to show you due to time constraints today, but we can run that Monkey Finder app on Android, on Mac, on iOS as well. And for more, you can read up on the docs. You can check out the lab and the repo at these links at the bottom of the slide. And if you can't get enough of us, be sure to tune into Build. Build is coming up next month, May 19th through 22nd, and you can come find us in person or you can register online. And of course, continue to stay in touch. So you can find us on GitHub at github.com/.net/Maui. We also have a Discord you can join if you want to have deeper conversations with the team. And you can catch us on our monthly community stand-up as well on the .NET YouTube channel. So that's it. That's all from me. Thank y'all so much. Here's my info if you want to reach out to me over email or socials with more questions or anything else. And thank you, Beth. Shout out to Beth here, our Rockstar resident Blazor hybrid PM, for joining us in the chat.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you to Beth and thank you to Rachel. Both of you ladies did a great job, and it was a great presentation. I'm looking over in the chat. I don't see any questions, but again, questions and comments are encouraged. So feel free to jump in either verbally or in the chat. But if not,
I have one question. Is .NET Maui, you mentioned in one slide near the beginning how web UI is going to be kind of the standard for native Windows applications. I don't remember the exact slide, but
Right, WinUI?
oh wait, Win UI, you're right. You're right. Win UI.
Yeah.
Is Blaze is .NET Maui this hybrid thing, .NET Maui, is it going to be the standard going forward for Windows applications as a whole? Is it going to be like the recommended standard from Microsoft for if you create a greenfield application in Windows, whether it's desktop or web, is this going to be the recommended way to do it?
Yeah, great question. So everything you see on this slide here is our recommended way. It's really just a matter of what you're personally interested in terms of if you want your app to be hosted on the web, if you want it to be hosted on Windows device. Like it depends on the actual target platform devices of interest. So in your case, if you're interested in having an app that is targeting both the web and also a Windows desktop, then yes, Blazor Hybrid um, with web and Windows would definitely be the recommended approach. And that does use WinUI as well. And we're also using WinUI on Maui.
Okay, that's it from me.
Cool.
Any other questions or comments for Rachel or Beth? Going once, twice. And as expected, great presentation, Rachel, and also great support from Beth as well. Appreciate you both, ladies. And the links are useful. And hopefully you can share the PowerPoint presentation with me later. And likewise, I will share it with the group.
Got you. I'll make sure to
Excellent.
get those over.
Excellent. Thank you. And I have a couple concluding slides before we adjourn for the evening. So if I may, I'd like to share my screen. And if you look over in the chat window, you'll see that there's a couple links that I posted. And going through those specifically for the YouTube link. So the recording will be edited and then will be posted on YouTube in just a couple days. But if you would please subscribe to the channel to get the upload notifications. And the link posted there is also posted in the chat. In addition, tech events are also posted on my blog, samnasser.blogspot.com. And if you would please take a moment to subscribe to that to get updates as well. And last but certainly not least, please take a moment to fill out the eval form so we can provide Rachel with some constructive criticism. Also, I'm looking for what other topics you would like to hear, what other types of presentations you would like to see, so that way we can increase the momentum of the group going forward. While we're talking about tech events, let me point out a few things that are going to be happening in the area. So virtually on April 25th, which is this coming Friday, is the Memphis Global AI Bootcamp. That's going to be held virtually from Memphis, Tennessee. So the time slot is going to be Central Standard Time, but it's going to be an all-day event of 2 different tracks, properly labeled A and I for the AI Bootcamp. And I will be presenting on Introduction to AI for Developers at 11:10. But as you see on the schedule here, that there's a variety of different topics all related to AI and machine learning. And the link for that will be posted on my blog. But also, let me take a moment to share that also in chat. And then another great event that's going to be happening a little bit further is Stir Trek. That's going to be on May 2nd. So Stir Trek is going to be held in Columbus, and it's an all-day event of various tracks and topics related to .NET and software development at large. The cool thing about it is they host it in a theater, and the presenters present on the cinema-size screens. And then at the end of the day, the theater is closed only to the participants, and you have a private viewing of Marvel's Thunderbolts. So it's a great event, great for networking, great for learning new technology. And fast forward into August is Cincy Deliver. That's going to be happening in Cincinnati. And that is, again, an all-day event happening on Friday, August 1st, about various topics in software development, Agile, .NET, and a variety of other topics as well. So I encourage you to check that out. That is at cincydeliver.org. And I will have that posted on my blog as well. Also, if you're in the job market, I encourage you to check out devitjobs.com. This is a very interesting website that allows you to search on various technologies, the geography that you want to work in, whether virtually or remote, and you can filter on a variety of different settings. I know some of us are currently in the job market, so hopefully this will be helpful for you. Also, my contact information, should you have any questions regarding this presentation or other presentations we've had, you can reach out to me at snasser@nistechnologies.com. And if you ever forget that, you can always find all my links and my socials on linktree/samnasser. And lastly, my favorite platform. If we're not connected on LinkedIn, please let's do so. It's a great way to keep in touch, connect, share articles, and overall great platform. So with that, thanks again to Rachel, to Beth, and to all of you who attended, and look forward to seeing you all next month. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
This conference is no longer being recorded.
All right, now you can speak freely, everyone.
Tell me how you really felt.
Don't hold back. No, really, great presentation, Rachel. I was taking some notes as we were going along, and I will sum that up and make a blog post about it, as well as the link for the tutorial that you went through. So
Awesome.
very helpful. Great
Thanks a
pace.
bunch, Sam. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and hopefully we can connect later. Take
Sounds
care.
great. Bye.
Bye-bye.